Now available in paperback and e-readers. E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a wicked werewolf in this action-packed all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman in paperback and e-readers today. Coming to paperback and e-readers, Steam Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed all-new Esteem series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Esteem Season of the Witch Girl at Amazon.com and other online booksellers. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue. A McDonald's employee served up some hot fries by hurling them at some rowdy teens in a video that went viral on TikTok.
What the fuck? She just walked in that bitch and did that. Bro, I just want my food.
What the fuck? Fuck this bitch. Fuck, bring the knife and shit. Fuck. Fuck. Go get fucked up. Go get fucked up. Get the fuck out of my face! A bunch of bitches. To be honest, what this nigga trying to fuck? Oh, what the fuck?
Nigga trying to fake dread.
You need fresh fries, bro. Nigga want fresh fries. Bitch, don't use a bitch. Fucking bitch. Talk my fucking face. Talk my fucking face.
Holy fuck.
I don't think that's the way you're supposed to serve fries to the customer. Now, in this video that went viral on social media, a young black woman is shown getting into an argument with some teenage customers at McDonald's. And as she's in this argument with these teenagers at McDonald's, she then gets to the point where she becomes so emotional that she takes a basket of fries out of the deep fryer and hurls it at one of the rowdy teenagers. And after hurling the fries at the rowdy teenagers, this is where the young black woman goes into the outside of the restaurant and continues to exchange profanities with the teenagers. And after exchanging profanities with the teenagers, she steps back into the restaurant, and the teenagers come back into the restaurant to exchange more profanities with her. And one is so emotional she almost slips and falls, and they then wind up throwing several cones that are put there to mark wet spots at the woman. And then the woman again throws chairs back at them, and the entire exchange, as disturbing as it is basically recorded in this video that went viral. Now, when I take a critical examination of this entire video, it basically fits the pattern and profile of dysfunctional women that I talk about in my book, The Woman Crisis, and fits the chapter that I talk about regarding Children of the Corn. Now, back in 2015, I made my first video talking about these Children of the Corn, and around that time, I talked about how these kids grow up dysfunctional and grow up to become dysfunctional adults. And that's what we see here in this video. We see adult children of the corn in this young black woman who basically has no understanding of how to navigate through her emotions and maintain her professionalism in the face of a disruptive customer. Now, when I look at this whole situation, it really reminds me a lot of what a family member told me regarding these children of the corn, as related to the way they would behave in classrooms at the school she used to work at. Now, this family member of mine was a teacher who worked with first and second grade students and saw this type of behavior at an early age with these children of the corn. Now, back in those days, around the early to mid 2000s, she would tell me about stories about little children who were as young as 6 and 7 years old growing up and having these rampages where they would go into the classroom and throw down $500 iPads, throw down tables, throw chairs, and this was the behavior that these children would participate in, behavior that would not be tolerated in my day growing up in the late 70s and the 80s. Back then, if we acted out in the classroom, we knew that there was a belt waiting for us to teach us some discipline on how to behave. However, in the early 2000s and mid 2000s, that wasn't the case at all. No, in those days, basically, many of these children were enabled to participate in this out of control and antisocial behavior because of Department of Education policies that told teachers they needed to take the kids out of the classroom, let this child go on a rampage and tear up the classroom while they waited for a social worker to come in and intervene. This was the policy that basically was taught to teachers back in those 2000s, and that policy basically enabled these children to believe that their acting out was considered to be socially acceptable, and taught to believe that it was socially acceptable to act out in order to get their needs met, because after they acted out in the classroom, a social worker would take them to a room, give them some cookies and some juice, and let them watch some movies. That was the official policy of public schools here in New York regarding the behavior of children like this. But what those people didn't see was they were enabling bad behavior in these children to believe that if they act out, they will get their needs met, and that acting out is perfectly socially acceptable for them to participate in society. And what happened with these children is that as they grew up and went to these public schools, this behavior basically enabled them to continue growing up like stalks, and this is why I call them children of the corn. These children of the corn basically, again, grow up like stalks, wilding out wherever they go, believing that this is how they get their needs met. Unfortunately, that makes it where these individuals are not able to function in society in a healthy fashion. No, they're not able to go out here and function in society because they don't have, again, the life skills that will help them to survive, life skills that will help them to be able to navigate the workplace, life skills that will enable them to think critically or conflict resolve. And that's what's shown in this video with this McDonald's worker. This young woman does not know how to think critically about how to deal with unruly customers. No, what she does in this situation is escalate the situation by having no control over herself, no control over her emotions, and no control over anything. And with her having no self-control and no control over her emotions, she gets so out of control that she basically takes this whole basket of french fries that are in the fryer and hurls the basket at one of these other children of the corn, causing chaos in that McDonald's, in that lobby, causing chaos in that lobby to the point where she basically creates a situation that is not only dangerous for those customers that are in the restaurant, but also dangerous to herself, because in that video we have her basically committing an assault on that customer, and that's the first thing that she's done. Basically, she's put herself on a road to possibly being arrested. Moreover, she's also put that business in a situation where it's going to have to possibly deal with liability as related to a lawsuit. because her taking that basket of fries out of that kitchen and hurling it at those kids basically puts that restaurant on the hook for liability as related to a civil lawsuit, on the hook for liability in a civil lawsuit because she hurled fries, again, assaulted a person with battery in this situation as related to those fries, then went out here and then started throwing chairs and throwing things back at these people, again, putting the restaurant in a case of liability as related to this situation in a civil lawsuit, and further created a situation that could have been a slip and fall because one of those teens almost slipped and fell on the oil that was put down by her hurling that basket of fries. And again, all of this was done because this young woman was so caught up in her feelings about being upset that she was not thinking critically. No, she was so blinded with rage, she was not thinking critically about this situation. And as she wasn't thinking critical about this situation, she putting herself at risk for her freedom, and also put herself at risk of possibly, again, being a defendant in a lawsuit. This is what happens when your children aren't raised to go out here and understand things like navigating through your emotions. Yes, you can have the feelings of being upset about having to deal with an unruly customer. Yes, you can have the feelings about being frustrated about dealing with a toxic individual, but you can't act on those feelings, because if you act impulsively on those feelings, you may have to deal with the consequences of your actions. You may have to deal with the consequences of your actions, and that's something a generation of children did not learn. And that's what one of my family members, who was a teacher, was telling me about for many years, about how these kids, again, were being enabled with this out-of-control behavior, because the way they would tear up a classroom by, again, breaking iPads, throwing chairs, again, this was enabled for over 20 years in children because the schools did not want to teach children consequences. No, today's public schools, there's no consequences for actions. Kids don't get suspended from school if they act out. They don't get expelled. No, and because these behaviors are enabled where they think they can do whatever they please and there's no accountability, they take these dysfunctional life skills that they've learned into the job market. And this is why you see the chaos that you saw in this video that went viral. Again, public schools were supposed to prepare children for the world of work, but this woman really was not prepared for the world of work. No, she wasn't prepared for the world of work because she grew up like a stalk. She grew up like a stalk in a dysfunctional family unit, further was enabled by our public school system, further enabled by this public school system to act wild at that McDonald's, act wild at this McDonald's, and act completely out of control at this McDonald's, the same way they would do in the classroom at the public school. Again, this is what happens when you have a complete breakdown of the family. When you don't have a functional family, you get dysfunctional individuals like this. And these dysfunctional individuals then enter the job market. And as they enter the job market, instead of an employer being able to profit from their labor, what they have to deal with is a lawsuit, because that's what's coming next to this McDonald's franchisee. What's coming to this McDonald's franchisee is a civil lawsuit because of the out-of-control behavior that was perpetrated in this video that went viral by this child, of this woman. Again, what we see here is what happens when you have a complete collapse of the family. Again, when you don't have a family unit, you cannot go out here and get children who can go to school, and those children can't enter the workforce. This is what flies over the heads of many of the wealthy, what flies over the heads of many of the wealthy who wanted to break up the family back in the 1950s, is they were not really seeing the chaos that would come almost 70 years later from the plans of people like Rockefeller to break up the family. They thought, they would be able to get consumers, but the great irony is that if those consumers don't have any structure, what they do is cause chaos in places like McDonald's. I mean, it's really sad because I remember growing up as a kid and my late father taking me to McDonald's. I remember that being a treat that I looked forward to. I mean, it was something that I looked forward to as a boy, and when I went there, I was on my best behavior. And I also remember in the 80s, many of the employees being on their best behavior. Many of the kids who would get these jobs would go out here and be on their best behavior because they understood that this job was a stepping stone to another job. But what I see here as related to this whole situation is a complete breakdown of the entire process. This young woman basically took this first job and again doesn't appreciate this first job because she's been enabled to be dysfunctional, enabled to believe that acting out is how you deal with conflict. And because she doesn't know how to deal with conflict, she basically again gave these other children of the corn the type of rowdy entertainment that they believe is supposed to be normal. I mean, when it comes down to a lot of these kids, they basically, again, children of the corn grew up in dysfunctional homes, had that dysfunction enabled in public schools, and then further watched social media where they saw people, again, who were the age of their mothers and their grandmothers acting wild in places like McDonald's. They basically were conditioned to believe that this behavior was normal at a McDonald's, and again, because they'd never learned how to be civil, they basically grew up learning how to believe, okay, this is perfectly fine, acceptable behavior for me to participate in, when in actuality, it's not behavior you want to participate in because, one, it shows that you got no home training, two, it shows you have no discipline, three, it shows you have no self-control, and four, you're a danger to yourself and others. That's what's shown here with all of the behavior from all of these individuals, whether it be the rowdy teens or the adult woman who again should have known better. All I see here is again what we have as related to the children of the corn. The children of the corn basically showing us how they basically are tearing civilization apart. That's what we saw here in this video at McDonald's. I mean, I have never seen a person, again, come from behind the counter outside of Rayon McIntosh who had to defend himself because these two black women jumped behind the counter to attack him. Again, jumped behind the counter to attack him over a $50 bill. That, again, at McDonald's, they only take more than $20. But the whole thing is, in that situation, that was the first start of people acting wild at McDonald's. And with all these people acting wild at McDonald's, you would think that McDonald's Corporation would be trying to do something to fix their image because things are so bad here in New York City that one McDonald's basically made it where they don't want children to be there. Again, you have to have an adult be there if you're under 18 or even 20 years old. And that's really sad because I remember, again, as a little boy, you being able to go to McDonald's and it being a family restaurant. But what's really sad about McDonald's today is that it's no longer really a family restaurant anymore based on all of the craziness that's there. I mean, it's a sad day that McDonald's, a family restaurant and what was once a safe haven, is not safe anymore. I mean, these days, the Chinese restaurant in your local neighborhood or the pizza shop is safer, and this is why I've been again shopping more local at local spots because I feel a lot more safer at the Chinese restaurant or the fish place or the pizza shop than I do at the local McDonald's because there at those spots, those owners are not going to let people get crazy in their spot. They're not going to let people get crazy in their spot, and people know they got to act right because they might have something behind the counter waiting for them. So people don't come to the local Chinese restaurant. They don't come to the local pizza spot. They don't come to the local diner acting a fool. No, they only do this at McDonald's based on what they have been raised to see. And because these children of the corn have been raised to see that being antisocial is the way you get your needs met, this is why they're causing chaos wherever they go. and they're causing chaos wherever they go because of the dysfunctional way they have been raised. Dysfunctional way they have been raised because of the feminist culture the wealthy wanted to create, because they thought they could create an order better than God, thought they could create an order better than God as related to the family, and thought they could create an order better than God that would lead to consumers. But it's hard to get people to consume food at McDonald's because the place is just that crazy. It's just that crazy, and again, feels unsafe. And one of the reasons why I stay away from McDonald's at this point, now I'm a big fan of Big Macs, and I did go back for a McRib and a chicken Big Mac about it last year, but the whole thing is I rarely ever go to McDonald's because it just feels unsafe. No, McDonald's is filled with the type of unsavory people that we used to go to the local Chinese restaurant or the local pizza spot begging for change, and other assorted weirdos. I mean, it's a sad day because the once family-friendly McDonald's has turned into an antisocial place due to the bad images and messages on social media. McDonald's has no longer become a family-friendly spot because they've got Children of the Corn coming to these McDonald's, and even worse, you've got Children of the Corn working at the McDonald's, causing chaos because this woman was way off code as related to the manual at McDonald's, because the way you deal with unruly customers is, again, you have to navigate through your emotions. That's something I learned working at Food Emporium bagging groceries. People, again, they will push your buttons and work your nerves, and if they're working them that hard to the point that they're getting you upset, then the best thing for you to do is leave that position and maintain your freedom, maintain your health and your mental health overall, because again, if these people are this toxic and out of control, then you don't need that job. No, you don't need that job to put you in a place like this young woman did, where you might possibly be facing criminal charges or a civil lawsuit. You don't need to be in that place because, again, when you're dealing with Children of the Corn, you don't want to wind up in a situation where they push you to the point where you put yourself to be miserable like them in their company, and put yourself in a situation where you go from being a working person to winding up becoming a person in crisis. That's what you don't want to happen. And again, when I look at this whole situation at this McDonald's, again, it shows me why McDonald's isn't about food, folks, and fun. And again, them reaping what they sowed, later than what they sowed, greater than what they sowed, as related to, again, the overall wealthy breaking up the family, and again, the wealthy reaping what they sowed, later than what they sowed, greater than what they sowed, as related to their attempt to reshape society. And instead of them having a society of consumers, they've got a society of chaos because they decided to go outside the order of God. They decided to go outside the order as related to Him and what He established for the family. And because they started to go outside of His order as related to the family, we no longer have a place where people can go out here and love it at McDonald's. No, people hate going to McDonald's because you don't know whether you're going to run into any of this chaos from one of these Children of the Corn. Now, if you want to learn more about what leads to children growing up to become Children of the Corn and creating horror and chaos wherever they go, you can pick up my book, The Woman Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Woman Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to see me talk more about these Children of the Corn and take situations like this to the barbecue, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.